Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are looking at something absolutely massive, a game-changing software update for human biology coming in 2026. I want you to imagine your body is a vast, intricately coded voxel world. Think something along the lines of Minecraft. But instead of placing dirt blocks and redstone circuits, we're talking about your cells, your DNA, and your biological healthspan. The research we're analyzing today shows a profound shift in medicine. We're moving away from just managing symptoms and figuring out how to actually rewrite the underlying code of life itself.
Okay, let's dive into this, because for the longest time, the old way of thinking was that aging was just this unstoppable force, right? Like a slow, inevitable decay. But the science of 2026 defines it completely differently. Aging is now seen as simply an accumulation of reversible software bugs. It's a series of integrated biological hallmarks that we are finally learning to debug, reprogram, and systematically patch. It's literally a complete paradigm shift.
So, think of our agenda today as your server map. We'll be covering the 2026 longevity update, resetting epigenetic block states, clearing senescent mob clutter, debugging intracellular redstone lag, farming evolutionary buffs in XP, and finally, bridging the healthspan gap.
All right, jumping into Section 1, the 2026 longevity update, and how we go about patching the 9.5-year healthspan gap.
Let's step right into our first biome here. You know, every game has a meta, right? A dominant strategy. Well, the old meta in medicine was incredibly inefficient. We basically just waited for late-stage chronic diseases to spawn, things like cardiovascular disease or neurodegeneration, and then we treated them in isolation. But the new meta is all about root cause modulation. By targeting the fundamental biological drivers of aging, researchers are compressing morbidity. The goal here is to make sure your entire playthrough is healthy right up to the very end.
Moving on to Section 2, resetting epigenetic block states in the Yamanaka factor temple and the liver biome.
Let's actually see how this builds out. Take the ER100 reprogramming sequence from Life Biosciences, which is currently in a phase 1 human trial. They use an inducible doxycycline lever, which is essentially a chemical switch, to systemically activate a cocktail of Yamanaka factors. Now, these factors are proteins that act like a hard reset button for your cells. But here's the brilliant part. They deliberately leave out the oncogenic c-Myc factor, which prevents the cell from glitching out and forming a teratoma tumor. This precise code safely restores visual acuity and regenerates damaged retinal ganglion blocks to treat real human patients blinded by glaucoma. Unbelievable, right?
But hey, it's not just the eyes we're fixing. Backed by a massive $435 million Series C funding round, a company called NewLimit is focusing on the liver biome. They're using LNP, or lipid nanoparticle delivery blocks. Basically, these are tiny fat bubbles used to drop transient mRNA scrolls directly into hepatocytes. This temporary expression resets the epigenetic age of these old human liver cells, drastically enhancing their regenerative capacity against dietary stressors and alcohol damage.
Which brings us to Section 3, clearing senescent mob clutter down in the bone mine and rhodiola farm.
So as we play through life, our bodies naturally accumulate these non-dividing zombie cells called senescent cells. They kind of just sit around, refusing to die and secrete this toxic inflammatory clutter. We absolutely need to clear these mobs out. And researchers actually have two distinct crafting recipes to do this. The first comes from the rhodiola rosa plant. Researchers in Japan discovered its EGC particles induce a process called perapoptosis, which basically causes these zombie cells to swell up and pop, clearing out adipose and muscle clutter. The second recipe is what they call a hit-and-run regimen using Dasatinib and Quercetin, or D+Q. These are powerful potions actively being pulsed to delete senescent cells and replace cracked, brittle bone blocks. Now, what's really interesting is how researchers are actively tracking this bone rejuvenation in humans. Odense University Hospital is running a phase 2 trial using a CTX scoreboard. By measuring the percent change in CTX, which is a biomarker that indicates bone breakdown, they can track in real time the successful replacement of degraded skeletal structures with healthy, dense bone right after administering that D+Q hit-and-run senolytic potion.
All right, Section 4, debugging intracellular redstone lag with mitochondrial pores and Gero-AI.
So, moving from the structural blocks of our bones, let's shift inward to the game's underlying circuitry. It's time to debug the intracellular redstone lag that causes our processing speeds to drop as we age. In neurodegeneration, researchers at ETH Zurich identified a massive lag issue, the accumulation of inactive GRK2 proteins.
These inactive molecules clump together and literally block the energy pores on the outside of mitochondria. This starves the cell of ATP and accelerates Alzheimer's-like amyloid beta lag. But they engineered compound 10 to act as a redstone circuit fix. It prevents these toxic aggregates, clears those mitochondrial energy pores, and restores normal cellular energy production, stopping the entire bioenergetic crisis in its tracks.
And you might be wondering, how do we find more of these broken circuits? Well, master builders are utilizing massive computational power. A company called Gero is using principles of physics and artificial intelligence to scan over 100 million blocks of world data, meaning electronic health records. This Gero-AI diagnostic map models disease-related cellular dynamics to identify exactly which intracellular circuits have novel reversible targets that need patching.
Next up, Section 5, Evolutionary Buffs and XP, featuring Fauna Bio and the Exercise HUD.
Okay, let's look up to the sky and check our player HUD for a second. Some of the most powerful updates in this patch aren't even synthetic, they're evolutionary buffs borrowed directly from nature's most extreme survivors. Take the 13-lined ground squirrel studied by Fauna Bio. This little animal can survive extreme hibernation-induced ischemia, basically severe oxygen deprivation. Fauna Bio is taking the exact genes the squirrel upregulates to repair tissue after hibernation and hurling those immunity buffs directly at human players to help them recover their cardiac health bars after heart failure. It's literally millions of years of evolutionary engineering exported straight to human medicine.
But, what about the things we actually control on a daily basis? Well, 120 minutes. According to a massive 30-year longitudinal study by Harvard researchers, this is the exact sweet spot for weekly strength training XP. Hitting that specific 120-minute XP sweet spot provides incredible multi-system survival buffs. We're talking a 13% drop in all-cause mortality, a 19% reduction in cardiovascular disease mortality, and an astonishing 27% lower risk of neurological mortality, including things like Alzheimer's.
But hang on, here is a crucial pro tip. There's actually a glitch you need to be aware of. For cancer-specific mortality, the data shows a J-shaped curve. Optimal cancer protection peaks between 1 and 59 minutes of strength training. If you overgrind your stats and push well beyond that 120-minute sweet spot, the benefits actually start to diminish. This IGF-1 glitch happens because high-volume resistance training causes transient increases in insulin-like growth factor 1, which can actually feed subclinical oncogenic environments if you overdo it. Balance is key.
Finally, Section 6, Bridging the Healthspan Gap and Climbing the Golden Stairs.
So, we've traversed epigenetic temples, we've cleared out senescent mines, and we've optimized our redstone circuits. Now we pull all these code updates together into a unified vision for our late-game experience. So the crucial point is this number, 9.5 years. Globally, there is a 9.5-year gap between chronological lifespan and our functional health span. That is the ultimate boss we are trying to defeat. We want those last 9.5 years to be active, clear, and vibrant, not spent just slowly deteriorating from chronic disease.
And really, that brings us to our final takeaway today. Biological decline is not game over. It truly is a reversible software bug. By integrating all these hallmark modulations, from cellular reprogramming to senolytics to precise exercise XP, we aren't just treating diseases anymore. We are building the golden stairs to finally bridge that health span gap. The 2026 longevity update is officially live. The only question now is, how are you going to optimize your own playthrough?